Okay, are we all set, folks? We've got our ready for notes. Oh, yes.
All right. I don't see any option here to share my screen.
See, you'd have to bring him up to panelist, and then co-host him once he got in.
Yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host him once he got in.
yeah, that'd be very handy. And
Because are you listening? And then co-host
Yeah, I'll continue then. A little bit of background about McPherson and Jacobson. We are one of the nation's top superintendent search firm. I wouldn't say that we're the largest, but we're probably about the third largest throughout the nation. And we've been in existence since 1991 and have done about 1,000 searches around the nation. We do have a nationwide network of experienced consultants. There's about 130 people around the nation like me who are retired superintendents or professors who have, or board members sometimes, who have a whole lot of experience in schools and have experience recruiting very capable candidates. And one of our hallmarks that we take pride in is sustainability in leadership. And I'll talk more about that as we go on, because I think that might distinguish us from other consulting groups. And why is this not?
Can anybody hear me?
Oh, Bob, are you there?
Yes.
I'm here. I'm at least I'm vocal. I don't say a scream, but I'm here.
You should be able to sign in and
I did,
Yeah.
but for some reason it's not there. So at least I can be vocal.
Well, I see your avatar.
Oh, good. Thanks. Well, John, let
can
me
you
go ahead.
turn your
Let me introduce
can you
myself.
turn your can you turn your camera on, Bob?
It looks like it's on. It doesn't say it is.
The camera is muted.
Yeah, the cam.
Yeah.
Here it is.
All right, there we go. Good.
Success. Thank you. Hi. Again, thanks for the time. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Bob Ferguson. I've done about 19 searches, about 12 or 13 with McPherson. I moved from California, Napa Valley, last summer to Brantford, Connecticut, and I did the Brantford search this spring. I'm a retired superintendent and now live in Brantford, Connecticut.
All right. I talked, Bob, about us being a leading national search firm, and our I guess philosophical basis that we think that there's a strong degree of relationship between student achievement and the length of time that a superintendent serves. And so again, we have data that shows that our superintendents that in the searches that we do serve for a long time, and we certainly help districts get quality leadership because it's really about students. It's about students achieving as much as they can, and who leads the school district matters greatly. Bob, you want to take this?
First of all, we work for you. You don't work for us. We listen very carefully to what your needs are. We don't hire superintendents. We simply find good candidates meeting the characteristics and qualifications you put out. We represent your board. We work strictly for you. We try and find the best talent possible. We've been very successful, as John said, in finding candidates and making sure they stay in the position for a long time.
And here's the data that backs up that statement. We keep track of the placements that we assist boards with, and we're pleased to say that about 80% of the superintendent searches that we have done have resulted in superintendents staying in the district for at least 5 years. And in fact, about 50% of them serve 10 years or longer. And amazingly, about 40% are still there at the 15-year mark or longer. And to put that in perspective, the National School Boards Association says that the average tenure of superintendents is not quite 4 years. So we beat that average all to heck. Bob?
Yeah, we have five phases that we use to this process, and the reason we're successful, quite frankly, is the process. We have a lot of different groups we talk to, as you can see up there. We have an online data point where we probably get, I'm guessing, I think 5,000 or 7,000 hits a month of people looking for jobs. We advertise a lot in almost every possible way. We put the word out as much as possible. I know that in the search I did for Brantford, we had 27 applicants, which is a lot for Connecticut. I'm sure it's a lot for New England. But we really do a great job in making sure we get the word out, word of mouth, talking to people, talking to superintendents, talking to state representatives, and make sure everybody knows that the opportunity is there for Hartford school system. And we really try and not only do we get them involved, but we also maintain and keep a strong track of them so that they're still involved along the process.
And you can see very precisely where we advertise. The American Association of School Administrators is the leading organization for school superintendents throughout the nation. Top School Jobs is published weekly in Education Week magazine. So if someone's looking, they're likely to look at either of those two sources. And we also recruit minority candidates with the National Alliance of Black School Educators and the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents. We advertise on all those sites. So you saw the first 5 parts of phase 1, and one of the things that we also do that we think is very significant is we hold a lot of in-person stakeholder meetings. I assume that you will want them. Typically, districts want us to get the thoughts from administrators, teachers, students, parents, community members, support staff, and we will hold forums to do so. And we also will put an online stakeholder forum on your website in whatever languages you want us to. Maybe English is your dominant language there, but you might want Spanish or some other language as well. We had video interviews of potential candidates so that when we narrow the field down and make recommendations to you about who you should consider or who you should not consider, we will have video interviews of those candidates that we think are a close match to the qualities and characteristics that you identified. And we also do a criminal, financial, and educational background check, so we make sure that people represent themselves well. And included in your investment of $16,375 is travel expenses for us to the school district and office expenses.
We have 5 phases, and phase 1 is probably the really critical one, where we sit with you for probably a couple of hours. And we talk with you about what you want to see in your new superintendent, background, experience, characteristics. It's very important that we have exactly what you want. We try to make the perfect fit for that process. That becomes part of the letter of application. So we ask the candidates to not just talk about in general who they are, but specifically look at different things. You may have some really key issues in your district that you want somebody who has experience with, whether it be special ed or buildings or public relations, whatever it is. We listen very carefully to what you want. We put it down in the paper. It's in the brochure that we have. And we ask candidates, and it's hard. It takes a lot of time. It's not simply a 2-page application. It's a multi-page application with a lot of references to what you're looking for as a superintendent. We do the timeline. We sort of backward plan. When do you want this person announced? How do you want to announce it? We determine how you want to advertise, and John went through that before, exactly where you want to advertise. We do an excellent job in getting the word out and try to get as many people as possible in the pool, and then target that pool to what your needs are and characteristics of what you want for a new superintendent.
We do have the stakeholder meetings, as I mentioned. We plan them in conjunction with a point of contact. We will ask you to identify a point of contact that we can work with. We know that you're all busy people and aren't employed by the district, but we'll want to interface with someone from the district to make sure that we can plan those surveys, those stakeholder meetings that we talked about. Again, we'll do the surveys in multiple languages online. And then we prepare a summary of all those comments. And that summary is really instructive for the board. I mean, I'm sure all of you know what characteristics you want in your new superintendent, but your thinking and the qualifications that you identify as top priorities may be influenced by the summary that we prepare for you of all of those comments. We also encourage you to put that on your webpage as well, because potential candidates will look at all those comments. We ask 4 questions. What makes this a good community to live in? What makes this a good school district for students to attend? What are the issues that the new superintendent will face? And what characteristics or qualities would you like to see in the new superintendent? So as prospective candidates look at that summary of all those comments from the various stakeholder groups, they may very well say, well, that's not me. I'm not going to apply there because I can't do those things well. Or they may say, that is me. I can do those things well. So
John, I wanted to show them something. This happens to be the stakeholder report from Brantford. 60 pages of information. Not only is it good for you as the board to hear what the community and people are saying, but we also send this to the finalists, the applicants, so they know exactly what the district needs and wants and what the issues are, what the community looks like. So they have a very good knowledge base coming into the interview, hopefully for the job.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add to that, we pride ourselves and we encourage you to have a transparent process. And so when you put information like that on the webpage, exactly as some person stated it, they know that you board members are listening to them and that you take their comments seriously.
There's also an online survey, which has been very, very successful. A lot of people feel they don't want to really say what they want to say in a public meeting, but the online survey that we had is in Brantford, which is a district similar size to your district. We had about 400 online survey people responding. Sometimes they respond a little too direct, but at least you're getting honest feedback from them.
So part of that phase 2 is we develop a vacancy announcement after that meeting with the board in which you've identified the criteria that is most important to you. We advertise the position throughout the nation as we showed you. We also have about 130 people such as Bob and me, and we send that vacancy announcement to all of them and ask them to identify potential candidates that they may be aware of. We post the information on our website, and then we recruit candidates and recruit applicants, and we keep them informed throughout the process. We keep them informed of the timeline and anything else that they might need to know, and we keep them informed as well as keeping the board informed.
Part of that informed process is also keeping them excited. We really want them to be excited about the position, and a good candidate is probably going to be looking at maybe 2 or 3 different types of jobs, but we want them to be really excited. And so we touch base with them a lot to make sure they're online and they're excited and answer any questions they have. The vetting, phase 3, the vetting is the most crucial thing. And this is where I think McPherson really stands out. We do an excellent job in vetting. It takes a little longer. We go a little bit deeper. We go over every single applicant file. We look at the criteria that you have put down as you want new superintendent. We do a lot of reference checks. We don't just do every candidate's going to have a list of recommendations, and usually most people don't put a recommendation that's not going to be good. So we go really 2 or 3 deep to try and find out exactly who this person is. Talk to ex-board members, talk to people they work with, talk to the community, talk to the unions. We really want to give you as many touch points as possible. So when you get down to making decisions, you have a lot of criteria in front of you can use. The final 5 or 6 or 7, whatever you decide on, we do really deep reference checks on those. Out of, in California, we'd get 40 or 50 applicants, which is almost too many. Hopefully we get between 15 and 25. We go through every one of those, and at the end, bring every single application to you. But we do the vetting, so you don't have to simply look at an application and sort of hope that what they say is true. We guarantee you that what they say is true after the vetting process.
So then we'll meet with you and we'll review the top candidates with you. And we'll, again, share with you our reference checks and why we think that they are viable candidates that you ought to consider. And so, again, we will go through that in depth, their educational background, their experience, the attributes that they have that align with the characteristics that you have identified. And we help you therefore to decide who you want to interview. We also will help you by writing interview questions that you could consider based upon those qualifications that you've identified and also reflective of the stakeholder comments. Now, we'll help you to the extent that you want help. Sometimes board members I have found are very appreciative of the questions that we've written, and sometimes they say, gee, I want to ask my own question, but that's okay too. It's your search, and you certainly can ask questions that are important to you, but we will help you with potential interview questions and give you some questions that you might consider. And then likewise, we're very courteous to those people who have applied but not been selected, and we notify them as well.
The interview process is really critical in terms of how you want to interview. The selection process you've heard about, that we bring those candidates to you. You decide who you think you want to interview. You could, this is a sort of a question that's you need to sort of talk about. Some districts want to have stakeholders meet with the candidates. We want to make sure that all the people in that community feel part of the process. So that's a critical. If the candidates are assistant superintendents, there's no major issue. There is an issue, though, with sitting superintendents that may be a little hesitant to come into a district where they're going to meet with stakeholders. Because if they don't get the job, they go back to their district as a superintendent that didn't get the job, and their credibility could be damaged. So that's something we have to talk about with the board, what you want to do, how much direct involvement you want with your stakeholders. Again, with assistant superintendents, there's not an issue, but with a sitting superintendent, if they apply for a job and don't get it, they go back to their home district, and they've basically told the district they don't want to be there anymore, and that could be an issue. And then you simply sit down, and again, we'll go talk later about the interview process, but probably a good 1 or 2 days of interviewing would be appropriate.
Yeah, depending upon how many candidates you have.
Right.
So again, we'll review and suggest interview questions to you. You may want to have the candidates, final 2 candidates, maybe the final 3 candidates visit your district. We can help you to arrange that along with the point of contact. We can coordinate any meetings that you might have, as Bob mentioned, with the stakeholder groups. That's certainly your call. We've seen a whole variety of formats there. Sometimes people have a meet the candidate night in their auditorium. Sometimes they have interviews with the teachers, the administrators, and parent groups throughout the day, staggered throughout the day, or they bring the candidates in one at a time, the finalists one at a time. So we'll work with you however you want to look at your finalists very closely. And we can be the people who do the legwork for you in terms of contacting the candidates and scheduling interview times.
I think it's important too to mention that we really do the heavy lifting. So we know that the staff in the district have a job to do. We try to make the time constraints as small as possible. Especially the point of contact person we use, we don't want to burden him or her with more things to do. We do ask for some contact people. Obviously, we don't know the district and community, and we would ask you to give us the names of people to talk to or groups to talk to that we want to talk with. But we do the heavy lifting in terms of a lot of the printing. Okay, we do. Some people want to visit the district, they want to do that. We try and coordinate as much as possible. The whole thing here is simply, I think the critical issue is making sure that the candidates feel really welcomed and warm and positive about the district, that you as a board feel that you've had enough input that you can sit back and make a decision on who might be the best person possible. Again, we talk with the candidates, we tell them if they made the finalist or not. We treat them with as much professionalism as possible and treat them as we want to be treated if we were going for a job in a new district. Again, it's just it's a smooth process. We make it that it's as easy as possible for you, the board, and for the people that work in the district. You mentioned we do background checks. They're the finalists to the final person. We do the FBI check to make sure that everything is appropriate, and then you can then announce your candidate and selection.
And we also coordinate some interview procedures for the spouse or significant other. Not that they're going to be interviewed, but if they're going to live in the school district, they need to be happy about it too. So a lot of times we arrange with the point of contact or the board for a tour of the school district so they can see the schools that their children might go to, or churches or restaurants or recreational opportunities or whatever might be important to them.
Housing.
Yeah, housing for sure. And then the final phase is once you've selected the superintendent, we work with you and the new superintendent to transition that person to be successful. We work with you in the superintendent to establish performance objectives. And we have found that we can therefore, our process is thorough enough and comprehensive enough that we can offer this guarantee that if you use our phase 1 through 5 service, we'll guarantee our process for 2 years. And that is If the selected person leaves for any reason within the 2-year period, we'll repeat the process at no charge except the actual expenses. That's how confident we are that our process is a high quality process.
I just want to talk about the performance and for a second, because that first year for a new superintendent is really critical. We simply sit down and work with the board, work with the new superintendent to talk about objectives, measurable objectives. So the candidate, the new superintendent, knows exactly what's required of him or her, what the qualifications are, the evaluation of it. You as a new board have expectations that you clearly give to the new superintendent and how you want to achieve certain things, and maybe steps along the way to check progress and make sure that things are going correctly. But that first year is critical so that the board and the new superintendent develop a very strong working relationship, and this process really helps that.
So other additional services that we can offer you without an additional fee. If you need help updating the job description, we can help you with that. If you need help developing an effective contract, we can give you thoughts on that. I can give you perspectives from New York State. Bob can give you perspectives from California and maybe Connecticut. I would also suggest that you talk with your school board attorney and get that contract squared away and ready to be filled in, so that when you pick out a candidate, you don't have to spend time working on a contract. And if you choose to go visit the finalist home community, we can help you with that as well.
Again, the timeline is, can be probably up to about 3 months. Depending on you are going out very early, which is great, to try and find a strong candidate for a July 1st new beginning. But we tailor it to what we work for you. If there's certain aspects you want to change, we work with that. But probably 2 to 3 months, depending on the number of candidates, the vetting issues. 2.5 months is probably a good, reasonable expectation.
Am I correct that you're looking at a July 1 start date?
Correct.
Possible.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So to kind of summarize, we think that we have a process that has been vetted over 1,000 searches and refined. And it's a very transparent process for the candidates, for the community, for the board members. Everyone's got a high degree of involvement, certainly the Board of Education members, as they select the criteria that is important to them, as they select interview questions. But the stakeholders, as we mentioned, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, the students, community members, all have some input as well. We will communicate with you throughout the process. Bob mentioned that we do a really, really thorough job of recruiting and vetting qualified candidates, and the proof of our work is in the pudding. And as I showed you, we have results that show that people that go through our process with the boards stay there for a long time, and that is good for you. So with that overview, what questions might we answer for you?
So let me start with our board clerk. Nancy, questions?
I don't have any questions, but thank you.
And our policy and finance guru, Peter.
Yes, so you've said pretty much everything I wanted to hear in terms of how we would want to do this. I was looking forward to a high-touch engagement where you would be involved at multiple points along the process, and it's pretty clear that's what you're trying to sell us. The one question I have, and it's a little impertinent perhaps, is how do you provide that service at the price you're quoting us? Are we still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we're having problems on our side. You just appeared. People take, and people's time costs money. And I'm afraid that we might not be paying enough to get the time and the engagement that we want. Not that I want to pay a lot of money. I just want to make sure that you can actually do it, and that we're not sort of getting overpromised and underdelivered.
Let me try, and if I can just attack that at first, we will do whatever you as a district board wants us to do to maintain the quality and the service that you want. Sometimes some boards have asked us to stay longer, to have more in-person meetings. Instead of maybe 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 or 4 days. So that'll be maybe a little additional expense. But the key issue here is that we want the community to feel engaged and part of the process. That to me is the number one issue, that as long as they feel that they've had input, they may not like everything that happens, but at least if they have input and they're respected and listened to, and listen's the key word. And as John mentioned, those 4 questions we ask and what we get back. And I think when you get the notice back in terms of the dialogue and the information coming from those meetings and put that online and show the public, this is what we have, this is what we did, they do feel, I think, a really sense of belonging, and it doesn't become the board search, it becomes our search. And that's what you want to hear. John?
Yeah, and I'd say, Bob and I have done a lot of searches, and we don't do any shortcuts, but I think, are efficient. I can type about as fast as people can talk. And when we go to those forums, I type the answers and I display them on a screen with an LCD projector so that people can see the comments that they have made. And that often causes someone to say, oh, that makes me think of this. And so then they say more. So it doesn't take very long to make the summary of those comments, therefore, because I've recorded what the administrators, the teachers, et cetera, have said as we go along. So each of those takes maybe an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half, depending upon how many people show up. We both have a lot of experience as administrators. We can read someone's resume and their references rather thoroughly in a short amount of time to see how that lines up to the qualifications that you've identified. So I guess the answer is, Peter, we're, I think, efficient.
That's probably, and the other thing I want to jump on there too, is that every single comment that's given, whether it's online or in person, is in the report. We don't touch anything.
Right.
We don't change the direction. Sometimes there's some 4-letter words that might be used sometimes online. We might revise that to a little bit, but we want to make sure everybody has a very honest input, and we don't try to doctor it all. It becomes what it is what it is, and we give it to you in the data form.
The other thing I think is kind of fun is Bob and I will look at all of these applications separately and not talk to each other until the end, when we say, okay, let's take a look at these 20 people. Who are your top 10? Who are your top 10? And see if we jive. And typically we do when we do, there's more than one consultant on a search. So again, you get the benefit of 2 experienced administrators.
The other thing too is that while we will narrow down maybe the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we let you see and bring to you every single application. So if there's an application that's wasn't maybe put in the top for different reasons, you may say, why wasn't this candidate put into the fold? Because he looks or she looks pretty good. And we can give you the information. Usually there's something that maybe didn't come up on the paperwork or they didn't want to talk about that might exclude them from being the best match for you. But we bring every application so you see every single person that's applied.
And I prepare a chart showing the candidate's name, the present position, the former positions, the number of years of experience as a superintendent, number of years of experience as an administrator, and then do I recommend that they be considered for an interview or not, and what my rationale is. And likewise, Bob will explain the rationale as well for candidates in addition to me. So you get the benefit of our thinking, not just.
And you also tell us how many candidates you want to interview. You may want to interview 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't say we're only going to interview 3 or 4. Again, we work for you, and you tell us what you want us to do, and we'll do it.
Great. So that brings us to Mr. Heaviside Sr.
Well, you've answered most of my questions. My main concerns are, this is Vermont. Sun goes down in November and you don't see it again until March. snow, rain, sleet. We are different. And I'm always concerned because in my prior life, I dealt with recruiting physicians, etc. And the spouse or significant other is as important as the candidate. Because you get one here and the other's unhappy, you've spent a lot of time and money and they're gone. So you address those questions. We're fortunate we have growth here. But obviously it comes at a price. And we have a number of buildings in this district. And we're going through a process right now where we're going to be coming up with some form for a bond to do some major repairs on our facilities. And so we're looking, always I'm looking for a person who is really great in finance, is well addressed in the maintenance of facilities, along with all the teaching and whatever capabilities. So,
But I say, by the way, I was very impressed with your career at Tech Center. That's really a very unique and that's a very impressive part of your district that you have.
thank you. So, I other than that, I'm ready to go and hope this process is, because my concern is this December, Tom's ends in June. And so basically we have 6 months to put this together and come up with a final decision.
Well, that would be one of the first things that we would do is work with you to establish a timeline, a search timeline, so that we can ideally get someone appointed by you in maybe March. And that gives the person plenty of time to make a transition. For example, when I did the Burlington search back in 2020, I think it was maybe 2019, Tom Flanagan was appointed in March. And that gave him all sorts of time to go from Providence, Rhode Island up to the district and get oriented to find housing for him and his 2 daughters and his wife, and likewise tackle issues ahead of time. So yeah, we aren't going to rush the process, but the sooner we can get going on it, the better it will serve you.
For clarification, we actually intend for Tom to stick around for an additional year to help do the transition.
That's great.
So
That's
it
good.
will be,
That'll make a very smooth transition.
Yeah.
And I guess before we get into, the details will come out as we continue the discussion. Sarah, I want to make sure that you get a chance to.
Sure, you've answered most of my questions. I guess the only thing I would bring up is that it will probably be an expanded search committee format and not just the board. That's, I think, where we've landed. So
Well,
just
no, go ahead. I'll embellish the rest of it.
So I just was curious to speak to that as far as how that would impact what you think would be our process.
We work for you. Whatever process you want to use, we'll adapt to it and make it work.
All right.
And chances are
Peter,
you're gonna have-
go ahead.
yeah. Go ahead, sir, then I'll follow up on
Well,
those questions.
chances are, even though you may have a broad committee, you're going to have one person who might be the chair of that committee. And that's who we'd communicate with so that you can share that information with the rest of the committee.
So one of the reasons you're on the group being interviewed tonight is you talked a lot in your document about diversity and equity and inclusion. That is an area which the board has been spending significant amount of time for the last 6 or 7 years. That's important to us. Could you address that issue, how you go about looking at minority and other kinds of candidates who might not think of Vermont as the place they wanted to end up in?
Well, we do advertise in the National Alliance of Black Educators and the National Alliance of Latino Superintendents and Administrators.
And we thought, appreciate that.
But frankly, in the 4 searches that I've done in Vermont, we've only had a handful of minority candidates. And some were qualified, some were not. The superintendent in Champlain Valley is Rene Sanchez, the Latino man. And he wasn't selected because he was Latino, but he was selected because he was the best candidate. But the point is, he got the information and he applied. I think he saw it on the Latino administrator site, and he's a very capable superintendent. So, every district in the nation really is concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and trying to find capable candidates.
And it's more about the ability for that candidate to embody the principles that we've worked the last 14 years to bring forward.
Mhm.
And you noticed I say that with an exclamation point, because we're doing what we feel we need to do for this community. And we've had to go through a lot of ups and downs during that time period. But as Peter said, the last 6 years have been the most diligent. And, as you read, the policies that we've developed, I think you'll get a pretty clear idea of where we stand. So, that's that statement, I guess.
But
As far
think,
as looking, just to help a little bit with, the next steps of the process, I think you guys helped put forth a very clear process. And, processes is the key to success, and that we understand. And being that we used a very similar process when we hired Tom, and he's probably the longest serving superintendent in the state right now.
wow.
Okay, so we're pretty proud of that. So you're speaking, to the choir,
Well, one of the things somebody mentioned is the critical fact of making sure that the candidate has a chance to visit the community with his family, with his wife, with the kids, so that, especially a minority candidate, Vermont is not known as a really diverse area. But the reality is that it's not the state, it's where you live. It's a town, it's the community. And if they come in there and feel comfortable and respected, I think that's an easy sell, because you live in a beautiful area up there. Yes, it's rural. Yes, you've got some issues in the winter. But if they really feel comfortable there and respected, and we want them to put their roots down and stay there for many, many years. And really, I'm not sure if they keep up with Tom's record there, but at least stay there as much as possible. And as a family, feel comfortable there and wanted and respected.
Cool. So I think, unless there's other questions, from the rest of the board, I think we've got a pretty good idea where we're at. I think Sarah's point, about that working group. Let's call it a working group, not necessarily another committee, but the working group of our stakeholders, which are our owners, and we are a policy governance district. And in that light, that's how we look at our fellow community members, and so that group of folks will actually do a lot of the that when you look at steps like 1 through 4, they'd be very actively involved in that part of the process. And actually the board wouldn't necessarily be as directly involved as they. You and this group would be bringing those finalists, to the board. There's a high level of trust and respect in the process. And that's why it's so critical to come up with a group that we feel embodies that process, if that helps where we're at.
One of the issues that we would probably suggest is that if this community group is going to be getting the names of potential candidates, that we do some sort of non-confidentiality sort of report that they, because it is important that we respect the process and respect the individual candidates. And we're fine with having a group of people working with that, as long as they know that there is some concern there, making sure that this is confidential and that we're looking at the best candidate possible. And let's not.
And that's what we did. That's what we did when we hired Tom.
Great.
We actually did confidentiality agreements. We just hired a new town manager. Sarah happened to be on that committee, and they, had the same, concerns and criteria in the process. So that level of professionalism and expectation is fairly clear.
Good.
Community-wide.
Yeah.
Right. What other questions can we answer for you?
Any other questions?
Think you've done a very good job of explaining how you work and what you do.
Thank you.
And at least at the moment, I don't think we have any more questions for you.
Well, we hope to work with you as soon as possible.
Well,
Thank you.
we'll be making a decision expeditiously.
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a
both
good
of you.
night. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 They answered all my
It's
questions
great, it
in the
worked out.
presentation.
Worked out well. I thought you could hear them well, see them
Yes,
well.
yeah,
Alright.
yeah.
And our next person is on whenever you're ready.
Yep,
All right.
let's do it.
Yes,
You do it? Okay.
we're ready.
We're jinxie tonight, aren't we?
Just gonna promote you, David, to a panelist, and you can join, and we'll be good to go.
And we're live.
Mhm.
Good evening, everybody. How are you this evening?
Fine,
Very good,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. David DeRusi. I am the Executive Director of the New England School Development Council, NESDEC. And on behalf of NESDEC, I am more than happy and I appreciative to be here to talk about our process with regards to the executive search, how we help you build an effective search for your next superintendent. So I sent some documents ahead of time to Tom. Tom's been great. We've been on the phone a couple of times. My plan is to walk you through the outline and leave time for any follow-up questions that you may have. NESDEC we've been around, we're going on 78 years. We started many years ago through the Harvard Educational Department, and we have been in the active business of doing searches for superintendents since the 80s. So we have a pretty good track record. And I'm going to walk you right through the executive search assistant outline. We sent a proposal for a guided search, and I'll explain what the difference is between. There's only one piece different from what our proposal was based on the assistant outline. So one of the first things we do, is, meeting and planning and organization. That's our job, is to work with the school board, and hopefully with the guidance of the school board and the cooperation with the school board, we build a search that fits the needs of your district. We will support and come up with a draft timeline based on your needs, when you'd like to see this search completed, when you plan on hiring the next superintendent. And we will draft out that timeline and bring it to you so that you can see. And we'll talk a little bit about timelines because you have a very, we sent you a timeline draft. It's wide open. We recruit for you. We personalize an information letter. I'll work with you on a candidate application letter with the district, and it would highlight your skills, who you are, and what you'd like an application letter to look like, what you want the applicant to know a little bit about you moving forward. We have national recruiting networks. We're members of the National School Development Council. So we recruit through a variety of both local as well as national agencies. We target specific groups nationwide. We have applicants. I just recently put somebody, I did the search in New Hampshire and they grabbed somebody from Missouri. So we have a pretty wide reach. We're starting to see more candidates from outside of the New England region looking to come into the New England region. So several searches we have going on right now have brought in candidates from as far as Minnesota, Missouri, Montana. So we're able to pull in people from a variety of backgrounds. We also advertise. We do the usual school spring online, top school jobs in Ed Week. We advertise in AASA online. So again, those agencies I just mentioned give you a pretty broad scale of potential candidates and applicants. Electronic outreach, we use Constant Contact. So what we've done over the years is through our own affiliate base of just roughly shy of 300, we cover from Connecticut to Maine. And we have a database that is specific to superintendents, business managers, assistant superintendents, principals. So when we send out an email blast of any type, we touch, several thousand people will get that to their desk and they'll be looking at them. We also know that people often look into NASDAQ just to check the website to see what we have out there and what is open as far as job postings. We do absolutely, we'll recruit some candidates. Professionals contact us all the time. I'm recently retired. I know people still in the field that will reach out to me. They'll check the web page and they'll say, you know, Dave, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But we have consultants in the field also that always have one eye open and one ear open, seeing if anybody is looking for work or if we would recommend somebody for a position. Now, F would not be the community wide needs assessment. That's not part of the guided search. However, I can work with you if your board decided to do a type of a survey online where you could get many people to participate. I've recently helped with that. Another district up in New Hampshire saying they had a lot, they had about 6 or 7 towns. They felt it would be hard to get everybody in for those type of focus groups. So I helped them put a survey together. We used prompts that I would normally use, NASDAQ would use if we were doing the focus groups. Then they put all their information together. I worked with the liaison and they were able to create a candidate profile out of that. So we're willing to help out with that process. We assist in the screening of all applications. Basically, everybody that's interested in the position would send their applications to us. We manage that. We check all the references, not the references, we check the certifications. We make sure they're complete and we will contact people on incomplete, candidate paperwork, and we'll handle all that for the district so they don't have to. And we also will push a little bit on them to make sure the paperwork is appropriate, make sure they have their cover letters. We kind of monitor that for you. I think the biggest piece of the work comes down with we assist with the initial interviews and finalists. The work of your board is to put together a screening committee. And that screening committee does the majority of the work. And this is where I feel NASDAQ, we put a significant amount of energy into working with that screening committee. It is that piece of this search that is the bulk of the work. That screening committee will come together. Right now, I'm your lead consultant on this, should you decide to go with us. So I would be out there. I would hold these meetings in person for the screening committee. We would work with them, walk them through the process, what it means to be a screening committee, confidentiality, because we don't want anybody at that level of the search to have their name out before they are a finalist announced. And we walk them through the entire process. And in the meantime, we put together for the screening committee, we'll have every candidate, all their paperwork, resumes, everything they've submitted goes online. At that first screening committee meeting, the liaison will receive a link to share with the committee, where each one of the committee members will go in, review the applicants individually, and we offer, it's more or less a straw poll where each screening committee member would be able to look at the candidate, read through the paperwork, and then with a simple click on a survey, say, I would really like to see Dave. I somewhat want to see Dave. I'm not interested in seeing Dave. So all that work is done in isolation. Now, when I come back for the second screening committee meeting, and that's where the real rubber hits the road, because I will have a breakdown of what every screening committee member thought of each applicant. And it'll be broken down. They're somewhat weighted. If you really want to see, think of it as college level AP and honors and AP. So if a lot of people are interested in seeing me, that'll come in at a percentage, and then the percentage gets smaller as you go down the straw poll. So that work will be done ahead of time. I will come into the second meeting, share that with the screening committee. So they have already flushed out their 3, 4, or 5 top candidates. Now the work is, okay, do we really want to bring all these people forward? Deliberation, we work it out, we talk. Then do we want to add anybody? If they decide there's a couple right on the cusp, they want to move in. And the screening committee at that time will tell me who they wish to move forward to the board for final approval. So the screening committee does a bulk of that work before they select who they feel are ready for their interviews. I'll help them set up an interview schedule. I will work with the liaison. I will contact the people they choose to move forward. That's what NESDEC does. We will then let the liaison know that the schedule has been set. I'll work closely with whomever the liaison is for this. And we work back and forth so that we'll pick the time when you're ready to do all your interviews. NESDEC does not come into the interview sessions unless requested to. We feel if we're in the room, sometimes the candidates start to talk to us. They think we're making the decisions, and that's not what we're here for. It's that screening committee's work to screen through those candidates and then move the best forward. We recommend screening committee sizes between 9 and 12. I've seen them as big as 22, and I've seen them as small as 8. So that, again, I'll work with the board to make sure whatever fits for you. We'll talk about that as part of the, orientation should NESDEC be your choice to move forward. We'll come in at an in-person meeting and talk about setting up of that screening committee and some of the work. So once the screening committee they go through their interviews, the liaison will let me know who they're moving forward. I will then call those candidates to make sure they are still on board. And at this point, I would then set up a meeting with the school board, because the next phase is figuring out your schedule on how you would like to bring in the candidates, the finalists for interviews. That could be a day in the district. That could be a visit to their districts. Really up to you. This is your search. My job is to come in and facilitate what you feel you need to find the next leader for your district. then once we get through that, we get you the finalists. I'm still there working with everybody, but then you're going to do your interviews. And hopefully at the end of the process, you have the right person and you will make your final decision as to who will be your next district leader and move the district in the direction you'd like to go. So that's literally my 10-minute rundown. I will, you have the documents. If you look at the timeline, it's a draft timeline. It's a very typical standard search. A normal search for us runs 120 days. But without the 4 to 6 focus groups, you're definitely saving anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks in the search process. Again, we could add those focus groups. That wasn't part of our original proposal. But again, if this board decides they'd really like to do some online surveying or set up your own meetings, I am your consultant. I can help you through that. And then when you get your results, I can work with you, code them so you can come up with the themes you need. So that, again, is up to you. So the timeline, without the focus groups, you could probably carve that back by probably into the 100-day, 105-day range. You do have holidays coming in. You do have some snow that might mess things up occasionally, but we're pretty flexible. We're here to work with what you need. And I'm in the middle of a search up in Two Rivers, Vermont, and we're doing fine up there. I'll be up there. Oh, the 14th and the 19th. We're at the screening committee process up there. And so that basically is really the 10-minute overview. So I am 100% open for all questions. It's a straightforward process. We have been doing this a long time. We have templates for everything you need. We have question banks when you're trying to figure out questions for screening committee. The packet you saw is just, that lays out the original, but we come in with our packets and we can give you anything you need template wise, from how to draft a letter to support people to get them onto the screening committee. We have it all. We give it to you, and your job would then to be look at it, tweak it, make it yours, and use it. So we do back up a lot of the work with the work already being done. It's just a matter of working with you and the board to make sure it fits your needs.
Cool. So we will start again with some questions. And Nancy, we will start with you again.
Actually, he answered most of my questions. I do just have one question. Where did you say you're working at?
Two Rivers, Vermont. Yep.
Okay. I just didn't hear it, so I just was curious.
That's where we're at. We're up right now. I'm doing that search up there. I'm like I'm the Vermont consultant. I'm trying to recruit some consultants, but right now I'm Vermont.
Thank you very much. No, he answered all the questions I already had, Coach.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
the one I sent to the sample.
Yeah.
Looked really nice.
So, Peter.
So, you talked a bit about how you have a national presence and can recruit broadly. We here in this town have been working on diversity and inclusion and equity for about 5-6 years now. What can your firm do to help us address that issue?
Well, we do send out, as I said, we work through the new National School Development Council, which is pretty broad-based, dealing with several colleges and other affiliates, ranging from New York all the way through to Maine. The other, we do post on the National Administrator of Black School and Education. We post on the Association for Latino Administrators and Superintendents, and we do post to the Professional Diversity Network. So that's something that just goes out with our electronic outreach. But again, we do, we connect Constant Connect really covers a lot of people from Connecticut to Maine, and the outreach nationally. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little surprised to see over the recent searches how many people were pulling in from, the Midwest. And I've talked with several of these candidates, and they're really looking for life change, and they want to move more towards the Northeast. So, but we do specifically target certain agencies that would help you in your pursuit of diversity.
Thank you.
Doug,
Listening to your presentation, I have the feeling you function more as a facilitator, and that the school, our committee, would be the ones doing the majority of the work. Is that correct?
The idea is, yes, and as that comes in, we come in as facilitators. This is your district. You know what you need. I should not be in there telling you, how to conduct your business. So we will advise, we will facilitate. I can, guide you to the best of my ability. But our job is to build a search that meets your needs. And if it's not up to me as on NESDEC, I use me, but it's NESDEC, to guide, to direct you in a direction that you may not really be comfortable with. So yes, we come in fully as facilitators. One of the first meeting, should you decide to go with NESDEC, would be an in-person meeting where the very first thing is, I need your liaison. Who would be the liaison to the search? Who's the liaison to the district? And then myself and that liaison go to work. And the choice of the liaison is very important. So my job, again, yes, is to facilitate, not direct the search.
Thank you.
Go
I
ahead,
think you've
Sarah.
covered I think you've actually covered my 2 questions that I asked. So, working with the committee is part of our plan. So you've already addressed that. And, to follow up on Peter's question, I'm as interested in a diverse candidate as I am in making sure a candidate knows that we are a district interested in promoting diversity and equity concepts. And so I would want that candidate to know that that is an important pillar of our district. So not just a diverse candidate, but a candidate who is interested in furthering those goals.
What I would suggest is, if you do have some time, go on to the NESDEC website and look at some of our searches. That applicant letter I spoke of is really your opportunity as a district to highlight who and what you are as a district, what your goals are, what your vision is, what your mission is, and you lay that out along with some of the, the reasons that it would be great to move to Vermont, and some of the highlights. And I learned a lot about Ludlow and that whole region having to do their application letter. So
rough summer.
Yeah, you do want to highlight both why it would be a great place to come and live, but also that application letter gives you the opportunity as a board to promote your district, your visions, your missions, and your belief, and you put a small little piece in there about what you're looking for from a candidate. A good candidate will do their homework. They'll go in, they'll know a lot about you before they actually potentially ever interview with you. But go on, see how some of the other communities we're currently doing, so you can get an idea what that applicant letter looks like. And that would be a further discussion. And again, I'd work with the liaison to make sure that letter fits. We'll give you some templates to look at, but it's really what you want to highlight your community and your district in that letter. So if I was to apply, at least I know what I'm applying to and for.
What you're getting into. Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Okay. So looking at you're, so you're saying you're looking at 120 days roughly, depending on the number of focus groups
Well, right,
that might be.
yeah, if you decide you really want to go with focus groups, again, that would be up to you. I could help you with that. But 120 would be the longest, and I would work with the board. My draft timeline. My first question, if we were to be awarded this search, would be, when would you like to appoint your next superintendent? And then I work backwards from that. So if you were to look at me and say, we'd love to have somebody by March 1st, then I will work backwards from that and show you what a draft timeline would look like to cover all those, key elements prior to March 1st, so that the board makes their decision. It'll be done so you basically set the tone. If you look at me and said, Dave, we're on a fast track, we want this February 28th, I'd be, all right, let's see if we can pull that off. If you said, we'll do it in the middle of March, I'll see if we can, whatever. It really comes down to what this board decides. You will tell me when you'd like to get that person appointed, and then I build a timeline backwards. So it can be done in less than 120, and I can, like I said, work with you on how to put a very simple online survey to gather everybody's feedback, how you could do your focus groups, and I'd work with you just to pull that all together. That's not a problem. But again, it comes down to when you want this next person signed on the dotted line.
We do understand that the selection committee would be, integral, in that process, and coordinating that part of the activity, along with the liaison, and then that would come back to us as the board for the final, decision. And that's what we did, the last search, so.
Right. The board is the final hiring agent.
Mm-hmm.
So the screening committee's job is it's a screen, right? You're only going to let so much in, and you're going to keep so much out. That's their job. And and again, I feel, and I've, been doing this now, that screening committee is important. And as you begin to think about that, our advice always is try to think about positions. Who do you want in that room? That, you want somebody that represents parents. You want somebody that represents, teachers. I've recommended bring the union president in. There's your teacher base, and it doesn't tie up a bunch. Or you bring in 2 administrators, or you bring in. So it really comes down to, as you're selecting that, I'll work with the liaison. And as those numbers come in, the key is, do you have a representation of knowledge base in that room? Because the job is, in an hour screening interview, you want people in that room that know if Dave is answering the questions, even at that level, with enough knowledge, so that then the decision is made. Yep, we asked 10 questions. He really came in fast and furious, and we'd love to see him move on. Or, you know what, he was weak on budget, and he really didn't have a grasp on special ed. So you really want, when you look at that screening committee, positions are important. You want a community person, but you want somebody, and if you have a parent that can, I use the term double down. You have a parent that is also a teacher in the district, that's 2 for 1. I think that's a great way to go.
It's a twofer. It's a twofer.
That's a twofer. Yep, you're doubling down. 1 spot, 2 perceptions. That's awesome.
But we're on the same page. That we actually even do that process for our administrative searches, our director level searches. So we're that's kind of part of our ethos, so to speak.
Good.
Any other questions from fellow board members?
None here.
Sit here.
No?
And I think we were it was pretty clear in your proposal, the cost and then the additional cost for additional services outside of the proposed
Right.
plan. So I think we're good
Thank you for
there.
being complete and concise.
Well,
Yes.
thank you.
Really good.
I know it's late and I'm sure you people have other things that you might want to get to. But really, if you decide to go with us, we will come in there. We'll give you the best. You have a team behind my consultants, me, and we'll work well with you, and we'll make sure that the next person is the right person, and we'll facilitate that process. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and about NESDEC.
Thanks, David. We really
Thank you
appreciate
very
the
much.
time.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.
I will. Good night.
Good night.
Well, that went well. I'm glad it worked out online.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess our next step, and it is the next step, is we need to, come to a decision, like on, the entity that we're going to use. As far as the, those other detail, pieces, I think the we can also talk about, this, after we make the decision, but what's been going on in my mind for the last, week and a half was looking at that steering committee, focus group, whatever you want to call it, that entity. Because when you look at the one we had when we hired Tom, everything that everybody talked about was covered by that group. And I'm really, proud of that fact because, we as a board came together and did that well. So I think, that's going to be a critical component, as we, move forward, with this. And then, the other big piece, is who that liaison person will be. We were very fortunate that, we had a very special person as the liaison, during that search, and, objective, qualified. The liaison could have been an applicant, and a very strong applicant, as a matter of fact. So as we move forward, we'll need to give that some thought, but at the end of the day, I think that, I'll try to bring forth some thinking around that. And we'll probably need to do that in executive session because of the confidential nature of this, part of the process, because that person will be handling all of the confidential data, of all of the candidates and the district, so I think we'll be able to do that piece of the discussion when we get there in executive session. So anyways, thoughts as to how we'd like to move forward as far as, straw poll, whatever. Peter?
So I think the feel I get is that we're ready to make a decision here. Do we wish to have a discussion about the candidates, or do you just want me to make the motion and
I say
We'll
make a
go for it?
motion. I think we are
All
all on the
right.
same page.
So,
You guys have decided.
well,
Just,
well,
just,
No, I'm just curious. I'm not just curious.
I think you're on the same page.
so,
Drum roll.
I know,
I
right?
was very impressed with the apparent ability of both firms to do what we wanted. Both presented themselves well, both were responsive to the questions we had, and through their presentations addressed the issues that we wanted addressed. But I personally think that there was a preferred firm of the two. And I would like to move that we employ McPherson and Jacobson as the firm that we will use to conduct the superintendent search.
I second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second. And unless I see any discussion, I'll call the question. Any hands as we're, okay. There's a motion on the floor that we offer McPherson the contract to do our superintendent search for our next superintendent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it's unanimous. What we'll do is, I think because of the nature of this and the next few steps, we will probably need to do some very brief special meetings. Okay, because being in the middle of budget time and with all of the, the process that we have to do to get through that, as well as our normal work, board work. But I think, they'll, they seemed amiable as far as working, both entities around our schedules, knowing the nature of boards. So I think we can do it expeditiously too, as far as, or I should say efficiently, those meetings, and, what I'll do is I'll work with him and Tom, or them and Tom, or they and Tom, and, come up with, that piece. And then we'll just start moving the process. I think that, if you'd like, I can give them a call tonight, because I think they'd be happy to hear. And Tom, if you can just share their, both phone numbers, with me.
Yeah.
I'll do that, dubious, piece.
Sure.
Coach Sarah would like to speak.
I'm just curious, what the time frame is for announcing and then deciding on a search group, because I feel like we should announce it before the holiday, but decide it right after. Because that way that you got the 30-day window or whatever that you need to do applications, but I don't think we should wait on that piece, because I want people to be thinking.
Well, that's, that's something that we would also need to do now that we've got, this piece out of the way. The first thing, regardless of when they start, we need to get the applications out. Okay, for those, we're looking for, an administrator, we're looking for a X, and hopefully we'll get multiples in each. And then, we can make that decision, as we go too. And we can decide, do we want to have, the, do we want to do that? Or do we have the liaison and, our district liaison, because that person will probably select first, and that'll be the first thing we need to do, because they're going to be, the link. And that takes the pressure, off, a lot of ways. I mean, there's still going to be interaction because there's going to be a need for it, with Tom, along the way. But, having, that kind of like that neutral party, in a way. So internally we have to look and see, too, is potentially the liaison someone interested in applying? Because that's
you kind of gotta rule that out first.
Right. So all of that is part of it, but that can be done fairly quickly, within a week and a half. But one of the things that I would ask, in my call would be, let them start earning, their keep, so to speak. And they could send, if they could put together, the piece that they were talking about, which is the recruiting for the committee, the screening committee. We can send the template. This is the one we used, and everything that was talked about is actually covered in there. There was union representation, there was principals, there were teachers, there were community members, there were parents, there were tech center, there was special ed. It was a very diverse, group, and very representative of our community. So that would be we would share that with them, as well. I think probably, what I'll do is, right after the meeting, maybe we can do a quick conference call, Tom and I, with both parties, and we can share that, and we can make sure that they get the materials that would be helpful for them to start thinking about. And that outline, is one, as well as the questions that we would put in the ad or the request, the community members. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Cool. So that being said, our big job here is done. If we can have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue, which won't take too long, and we'll be able to get everybody to whatever they need to do next.
Okay, Coach,
Yes.
I would suggest as a matter of mechanics, if we do that, once we've made the motion to go into executive session and we've agreed to it, why don't we get off the Zoom, and why don't you call me on my cell phone?
Okay, cool.
I was worried about.
Okay.
You gotta set it on.
So, I would like to move that we find that there is a need for an executive session to discuss the evaluation of a public employee, and that pursuant to 1 VSA 313A3, we go into said executive session.
And second?
So we have a motion and a second to move into executive session under state statute to discuss a personnel issue. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank
And
you,
I'll give
everyone who
you-
joined us.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you, everyone.
and thank you in the community. And those of you that were here that might be interested, keep an eye out for the application.
All right,
Thank you
we'll
very much.
talk to you in a minute.
Thank you.
Here. Sue, is Chico still here?
No, he went home.
No, he went home. So we'll just shut it down.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
Wait.
close it.
Let me just check. I think it's all set. He said he's gonna pick all this up tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Should be off. I'm just gonna close it.